Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Spotlight. Bet you thought we disappeared. We haven't been doing this quite as often as we had been before, but that's because we've got some other stuff that is really taking off, and we've been focusing there. So if you enjoy The Spotlight, please leave us some likes, leave us some hearts, let us know that we're missed, and we'll make sure that we come back more often. Awesome. So today I would really love to introduce you to a gentleman that I met probably about a couple of years ago in one of the many business type development groups online that I have been a part of over the last few years. And this gentleman has really stolen my heart with his authenticity, his generosity, and his interesting take on the process of finding love. So please help me welcome Mr. Alan Watts. He's a very creative relationship coach at Love-Engineers.win. Thank you so much for joining me today, Alan. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Gayle. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. It's been my excited pleasure to try and get you on the show, get our schedules to align. Where in the world are you right now?
Right now, I'm in England. You may be able to tell from the accent, but
You don't take that with you when you come to America?
there's some other guy that's from my town that one or two people have heard of. Some guy called William Shakespeare. So I'm actually in Stratford-on-Avon,
Very
right
nice.
in the middle of the country.
Good old Billy Shakespeare. Oh my gosh, how many words has that playwright added to our vocabulary? Right? Um, yeah, tangent,
Do.
tangent for the word witch in me. Sorry about that. I just love the fact that he actually created words that we use every day now, you know, that kind of thing. So, how is the weather there in Stratford upon Avon?
Wet, cold, and well, if I were to look out the window now, it would be pitch black.
Very dark right now. Yeah, we have such a time difference. What time is it there for you locally now?
O'clock in the evening. So
Awesome. Awesome stuff. Well, let's begin by kind of going back a little bit into what actually created this inspired idea on your behalf. What exactly is a love engineer, and what made you start walking down this particular path in relationship coaching?
That's a great question. Um, in a way, there's lots of questions within one and lots of different answers. So, the actual name of the Love Engineer came not long after I'd done my first coaching qualification. I was on a spiritual retreat, and the one day, one of the facilitators says, "Well, what do you do?" And I thought, well, do I tell him my former career or do I tell him the direction that I'm going now? So I said, well, for the last quarter of a century, I've been a truck mechanic, and now I'm becoming a relationship coach. He sat there and paused for a minute and said, what have I said? What have I done? And all these crazy things going through your head or my head. And he just sat there and says, from truck mechanic to love mechanic. I like it.
That's awesome.
That, yeah, well, that's really good. I think I'm more of an engineer than a mechanic with a coach inside. So then the Love Engineer was born.
I
As for
think that.
why coaching,
Go ahead.
it's mainly because of my own journey through life and a lot of failed relationships, or learning experiences that were also known as relationships, shall we say.
Okay.
And my in my early days, shall we say, I was the that nice guy. The one you go to, open up to, share the world's darkest secrets with him, and you wouldn't tell anybody. You'd never date him, but he was safe. Well, I was that guy. And I used to get really frustrated with these amazing girls that come up to me, talk to me, tell me all this stuff, and they'd get their hearts broken by some bad boy, and then I'd pick them up, dust them off again, and then they still wouldn't date me, and then we'd go off to another bad boy, and the cycle kept repeating. I just thought it was nuts. So rather challenging journey through dating, and I ended up going traveling to run away, to try and escape some of my problems, or running away, really. And while I was away, I found that all of the things that I was trying to run away from, even though it's the opposite side of the world in Australia, every single one was there too. Initially, I'm like, this is nuts. And then I realized I took me and myself with me.
Isn't that, yeah, we do
Yeah.
that, don't we?
We do indeed. And then while I'm there, I think, okay, if I want to get a really nice girl, what's it going to take? And I had this belief in mind from the movies and all this other stuff that you kind of hear about. And you sort of think, looked at myself as I was, and it's like, okay, what's the difference between me and that guy over there? He's got money. How wrong was that idea? Anyways, so there's this book. I happened to be in a bookshop one day, and there was this book on the shelf called Retire Young, Retire Rich from Robert Kiyosaki. So I thought, I'll have some of that. So I bought it. And it inspired me a little bit. So I went back and bought Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then the Cash Flow Quadrant, and loads of other books. And because I'm traveling around with a backpack, I was sort of reading these things, posting them back to England. It was a little bit crazy. It would have been easier to just give them away to somebody. But
If they're worth keeping, they're worth keeping. As you can see behind me, I'm a bibliophile myself. It's hard for me to let go of a good book.
Indeed. So that year in Australia was actually a big lesson of growth for me, as it was. And it also opened my eyes up to what it was like, life was like without my close friends, and also my family. So, but I enjoy the country so much. Like, okay, why don't I stay here? Spoke to the immigration lot, and they said, well, you can stay, just forget the rest of your travels. I'm like, nah. Got 6 months to go, mate. So he said, well, I'll tell you what, go and sit on the beach with a piece of A4 paper, draw a line down the middle, reasons to be in England one side, reasons to be in Australia in the other. That makes sense. So I went and did it. And I had a massive long list for being in Australia, and 3 for England. England won. Crazy.
Now, why would the short list win on that one?
Friends, family, they were 2 big things. And the other one is they have something in Australia that we don't have over here, which is a lot of deadly snakes.
Friends, family, and no snakes. Well, I love it.
Yeah, especially if you're sort of working in a garage or something, you can't just go and pick up a piece of tin you need. You've got to make sure there's no snake hiding underneath it first. Like,
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, I'd go with you. I would take London drizzle over poisonous snakes, probably myself. I can't really slight you for that.
So, yeah, and when I came back, I had a clear vision. I had dreams. I had goals. I had plans of action. And 18 months later, none of that had happened. Yet I had got married, bought a house. It's like, hang on a minute, this is nuts. So I set up my own business and I'm part-time because I'd always had that entrepreneurial spirit from when I was about 12. And I started with what I know. So as I was a mechanic, started fixing cars outside of work. And After a few months, I'd got 2 clients, and one was found.
I hope you were charging an awful lot to get you through 2 months between clients.
Nope, I wasn't anywhere near it. But luckily, that was outside of a full-time job. So, and then I got the opportunity to go and see a cabaret act called Iron Maiden, which I'd seen before, but I actually won these 2 tickets on a radio station. And all my mates were going anyway, so I got the spare ticket. And my guitar teacher says, I'll sell that for you. Cool. So he sold it for me, and I agreed to give the guy who bought the ticket a lift down to London. While we were there, he says, have you ever seen these guys before? I said, yeah, loads of times since the first Monsters of Rock thing I saw him at in 1992, I think it was. He just looked at me and smiled and says, I was only 2 then. I'm thinking, you cheeky little. But then that also made me start going into myself and saying, okay, what happened to all these dreams and goals that I had when I came back from Australia? Even more so when later on that night they play a song called Wasted Years.
Wow, if that isn't the universe coming around to poke you in the eye.
Absolutely. So that was on a Saturday night. On the Monday morning, first phone call I made was to my first client, or first or second, which just happened to be a business coach. I said, we need to talk.
Beautiful.
And with the coach, the business grew from pretty much £50 in my back pocket to turning over nearly double what I was earning as a full-time employee.
That's a good coach. Now, maybe you can help me out with this. What's the difference between a coach and a mentor?
That's a great question. Okay, so this is my perspective on it, and I have a few other coaching buddies that think along the same lines. And a coach is about getting the best out of the client. It's about getting the goals out of the client. It's about getting their ultimate motivation and their ultimate dreams and why they want to do it, and really getting all the information out of them, and then working on strategy to achieve it. Mm-hmm. Whereas a mentor is kind of more like a teacher. You go along, say, I'm here, I want to be here, tell me what to do. And the mentor will then say, well, look, this is what's worked for me in the past. Not necessarily what's right for the client.
Nice. So the mentor gives advice, and it's up to you to whether you follow it or not. The coach gives you assignments, and if you don't do them, don't expect to get the results.
Very much so. And the coach and coachee is a lot more of a team, I feel.
I like that. So,
with a mentor,
go ahead.
It's not getting off his nose if the mentee doesn't do what they're told. Whereas with a coach, if the coachee doesn't get the result, neither does the coach.
Makes perfect sense. And yeah, that's the coach's reputation if the coachee does not get the results. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what other kind of relationship challenges have you personally overcome that give you the authority to coach people in building relationships that they want to have?
So you're familiar with the old empath narcissist kind of relationship?
Personally, yes.
I've had one of those. My marriage, shall we say, she's a lovely lady. We just were not a match and not in alignment. So partly due to where I was at mentally and emotionally when we got married, and the joys of online dating at the time, which was still kind of new, I married a lady from another country which is fine. She was studying in Europe, so it's relatively easy. But for her to come and live in the UK or spend more time here, for us to really get to know each other, because of the visa laws, the only real option would have been a fiance visa. Cool. But there's a clause with that. You've got to get married within 6 months, which doesn't give you a lot of time to get to know each other,
Yeah, that would make sense.
especially when I'm working nights.
Ooh, that makes it darn near impossible.
Yeah. So after 18 months, I came off nights onto days with a different job and about 10 grand a year pay reduction. It's like, okay, if this is going to work, we need to spend time with each other. We need to get to know each other. There's also this thing in the back of my mind, well, is she just after a passport? Which a lot of my mates did as well. So I think it was about 2 to 3 years after we were married, she's got the passport, she's still there. Okay, maybe that's not it then. And maybe there could be more to it. And although I picked up little bits here and there that I didn't like, it's like only little things, so I didn't bother sort of saying too much. And that old saying, you know, happy wife, happy life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll all be good. Not quite. So within that time, I'd also stopped playing hockey. So and stopped playing guitar because she didn't like the noise, stopped listening to the music. So all these three things that I'd used for years for releasing lower vibration emotions,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing. I've got no other way to release them, so they build up and build up and build up. So I'm getting to be a mess inside. Plus, at the same time, her mother died, which was a little challenging. But she was also working away from home, which was a bit weird. It's like, why come to another country to marry a man, spend your life with him, to go and work away? And she come home being paid cash in hand as a waitress. It's like, hang on a minute, this just doesn't quite make sense. And the 1 year she was over in China, and I found a lot of things I didn't like, although I was looking for something completely different, like a diary in her own language. I couldn't read most of it, but I could read car registration numbers, hotel locations, prices, men's names. I think, don't like that. I really don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I don't want to rock the boat in case it's just nothing. So I got it all translated, and it's just like the whole world comes crashing down. And then she came back from visiting a family. We had a bit of a set to, and found out some other stuff which I liked even less. And then it's like, okay, there's a big part of me that just wants to say, bye-bye, go away, get out of my life. I want a woman I can trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, I've got this sword of Damocles hanging over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it was a couple of years before when we were over in her country out in Asia.
Well, let me bring you around to how did you actually overcome being taken for a ride by a narcissistic person who was mining you for your stability and security and access to your citizenship? I mean, that's a kind of a big thing there, and I mean, it's bigger than most people are dealing with. And you were able to do that. What were the actions that you took that put an end to her gravy train?
In a way, I did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So 18 months later from that point, we'd got 2 kids, twins, not necessarily by my choice, but there we were. And the one day I went out to work and my neighbours came, "Oi, we need to talk." I'm like, "What have I done?" "Not you. Are you aware that she's going out shopping and leaving the kids home alone?" I'm like, "No." So I went back in the house and said, "Look, that stops. End of. Never do it again. Because social services, if they find out, they will come and take the kids away."
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are the twins at the time are 4 months old.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Oh
so it
my.
does make you wonder what is going on in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 weeks later, I came home to an empty house, which was a really big shock because I didn't see that one coming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, life goes on. I'll just take one step at a time, one day at a time, do my best to get access to the kids and all that kind of thing. And then had another relationship. It's like, oh, okay, I could fall off a cliff and land off cushions. And then when that one ended, I just hit the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was living in a house I couldn't afford to live in. I couldn't afford to sell it and I couldn't afford to rent it out. Not a lot of furniture in it. So one day I put some music on without really thinking about what it was. And it was actually 2 CDs I picked up while I was in Australia, gifted to me by the singer.
Nice.
And on one CD, it's a song called You Can't Take Away My Rock and Roll. So it's like, you take my house, you can take my money, you can take my fancy cars, but you can't take my rock and roll. And that really hit me. So I put in his other CD. And then there's a track on there that's like going on, like saying, is this kid better off now that his father is dead because his mother was never what a mother should be? And that hit me so hard. And it's like, it's almost as if he's singing about me and my son in 20 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
But it hit me at that moment. And I'm like, I was actually that close to selling everything I've got, cutting my losses, and moving out to New Zealand. And it's like, I can't. Those kids deserve better than that. So from that point, within 2 weeks, I hired a coach.
Good for you. That's the action you took that finally put an end to that stuff. And what did the coach have you doing?
Actually going inside myself. And it's like, is that true? It's like, and she did all that stuff. Well, that really sucks. Now, what did you do to contribute to the situation? And initially, I'm like, nothing. Yeah, okay, she did got away with it because I let her do it, and I ignored everything along the way, and all these other things. And
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing I ignored was that thing just before we got married that says, I don't think this is right.
Little voice in your head.
Little voice coming from somewhere, and then there's another voice that says, you paid for the bloody church, all the guests are here, it's all paid for, you're doing it.
Yeah. That it's interesting because that financial investment, right, can work for us or against us, right?
Yeah.
It's the thing that has us keep going when we're, like, for example, in a coaching environment and we're like, I'm not liking what I have been told. It's too much truth. It's too raw. I don't like this person anymore, but I've paid them all the money. So suck it up and do it. And it makes it so hard to hear that other little intuitive voice going, don't do it, it's a trap. Don't do it, it's a trap. But I've paid all this. Forget the money, it's a trap. You know? So you went through with it. Now you're in the coaching. You're taking some personal responsibility for it. And then what happens?
And then, step by step, also went to Anthony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. And as a result of that, I got a peer group.
Mm-hmm.
which was actually had two peer groups. One was like a yes group. There's a monthly meeting in one of the local cities, and one that's an online Facebook group. And there was like people in there from all over the world. And within that group, just opening up and letting all this other stuff out as well. And actually, it's like, maybe sharing some things isn't that bad after all. All these things you get told growing up, like don't show emotions, and that's still work in progress, by the way. And
I imagine so for an Englishman.
up
Forgive the
and
stereotype, but you are a
yeah,
stiff upper lip society.
keep British stiff upper lip and the man up thing and all this BS, really. It's like, actually sort of look back and you think, everything I was is everything I'd been told to be. Question is, who am I?
Mm.
And in that group, over time, I ended up being one of the ones that was helping new members. And people say, oh, you should be a coach. You should be a coach. And I look through my Facebook friends list and it goes, coach, 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 coach. No point. So then I had a interesting connection with a young lady. And it's like, I sat in that moment, it's like, what the heck do I do now? If I got some coaching skills, I could handle this very, very differently. So it's like, okay, when next time I was at my peer group, I'm like, hey, Tony, try me as a coach.
Very
I
nice.
thought it wasn't worth it. Yeah, I've kind of got a reason now.
Very cool. Now, can you give us an example of one of the people that you've worked with since becoming a relationship coach, and what kind of difference that you made with them?
Yeah, I can think of just a lady about 18 months ago. She was having anxiety all over the place. She'd recently come out of a divorce herself, and her husband had been cheating on her. They got one child between them, and she wanted more. And he's like, no way, I'm not having any more. And then he went and had one with her best friend, and they were living across the road from their house at the same time. So it's like she got out of there, moved out, but it was still all that stuff in there.
Yeah.
So now, even with in the first lockdown, she chose to take voluntary redundancy after a job she'd been in for 15 years.
Wow. Okay.
And setting up her own business in a relationship with a man that's completely opposite.
Okay. Very nice. And she's happier now? She's enjoying her life more now?
Very much so, although this latest lockdown, I think it's been having a little bit of an impact, as with many other people around the world, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Missing that social connection.
That absolutely. It's been, we don't think about it much, but especially when you're not already in a committed monogamous relationship where you're living in the same place, right? Before all these COVID lockdown situations popped up, right?
Yeah.
And you're dating or you're maintaining two separate households. It really impacted relationships in a way that we don't normally think of, because we all tend to think the entire world has our worldview, our kind of relationship. Everybody I know is married. Well, no, they're not. Everybody I know is dating and none of us can go to the bar. Well, no, that's not across the board either. And people have had to pivot and match their relationship style to these lockdowns. So what kind of issues are you seeing for people in these COVID times that maybe are a little bit different than what you've had to deal with before with your clients?
A lot of it comes down to communication and space, because where you've got two parties where most of the time either one or both would be out at work for sort of 40 odd hours a week. And the kids would be at school. And then all of a sudden, both parents are locked in at home and the kids. They've not only got to work from home, they've also got to be a school teacher as well, try and get the kids to behave, as well as all the other housework and all the other stuff. And sometimes, some of it, you just have to let it go.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I
It's
want
like, what's important now?
That's excellent perspective. It sounds like it would have a very healing impact on wherever a relationship is at right now. Like, these are not normal times. And sometimes you just gotta flow with it, even if it's not the way that you think it's supposed to look right now. Just like the planets do, it'll come back around. Right?
Yeah.
Well, we are running out of time, so I want to make sure that I let all of our audience know what you are offering, because this is really actually pretty huge. It's not ungenerous. It's very generous. And as I understand it, you are offering 3 separate people each a relationship coaching conversation with you, a consultation, sometime between now and Christmas Eve. And all they have to do is reach out to you on your Facebook page, slide into your messenger and say, "Hey, Alan, I want that. I want that one. Let's schedule a talk."
Absolutely.
Correct? So give me an idea of what they can expect to receive from you during that call.
Well, everything I do for my clients is totally bespoke to where they are. And the reason for that is every single person in the world has a different view of what success is. Everyone has a different view of what love is. So success and love is going to be different for every single person. And every single person, whether it's single or a couple, is going to be in a different place when they reach out.
Nice.
So it's not going to be a case of fix everything in one go. It's, okay, what's your biggest challenge right now? Let's handle it.
Beautiful. And enough of that. What's the challenge? Let's handle it. Over and over, rinse and repeat. We'll fix everything in the long haul, huh?
Absolutely.
So
step by step.
If they're satisfied with what they get you from that call, then you do have one-on-one coaching programs that they can enroll in or schedule with you?
I do, yes.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. All right, my dear, thank you so much for being with me today. And I just love what you do. As we've gotten closer to each other over the last couple of years, and you actually stopped in and visited with me at one point. That was fun. You and Karen, and that was a great afternoon. I invite my audience, please reach out to Alan. He's got a very comforting, authentic being about him that makes it easy for you to admit the things, even your own part of it, or the down and dirty parts that we don't normally show the public in relationships. And he's got the wisdom to help you individually deal with your personal challenges that maybe no one else are experiencing quite specifically like you do. So please reach out to Alan. Alan, thank you so much for what you do in the world. Do you have any final thoughts for our audience before we send them on their way today?
Yes. One question to ask yourself, because especially with all these lockdowns and things, it doesn't take much for energies to rise and tempers to rise and all that kind of thing. And when there's a bit of a disconnect between you and your partner, ask yourself a question. What's my outcome here? Do I want to connect or do I want to fight? Do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? Because if you want to connect and you want to be happy, you're going to be coming from your heart. If you want to be right and you want to fight, you're going to be coming from your ego.
Beautiful. That
A
is
great example I use with my clients for the difference between the two. We have Mr. Ego
Darth Vader.
and when you're following your heart and soul.
I love it.
Little voice,
Yoda.
big one that can be quite manipulative.
Makes sense. Again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and for what you provide to the world. I'll be talking to you again real soon. Take care.
Bye for now.
When you open yourself up to actual energy work, makes that recovery progress so much faster. That recovery is possible. You do not have to live as a victim until your last days. You have unbelievable strength, and I know that because you're still here. Do you want to create something completely unrecognizable with your life? I can show you how.